Tell me who gon' rise and fall. I've been running from my flaws, still I'm standing 10 feet tall. Mirror, mirror, don't you lie. I can see it in my eyes. Truth gon' surface every time, even when no light is dancing with my shadow in the room.
All right, so first things first is we've got to set our fence to an eighth of an inch less than 3.5 feet, because, or not 3.5 feet, 3.5 inches, because a 2x4 is 3.5 inches wide. So I want that an eighth of an inch less, because if you can see, those corners aren't flat, they're kind of rounded. So I don't have a planer and I don't have a joiner. So I want these as square as I can get them without using those tools. So by doing this trick that I'm doing right now is you set your fence on your table saw an eighth of an inch less than the 3.5. So then you're going to take this, rip this through the saw, so then that'll clean up this edge. Well, then if you flip it over, your fence is already, you just cut the board, so your board is already the same length as the cut, so you won't be cutting on the second board. So what you take is you take an 1/8 inch spacer, slap that up against the fence, then when you put the board back up here, now you can take off another 1/8 of an inch on the other side. So then you've got two clean sides on the 2x4. Let me pick you back up after I get there. So now I took my 2x4 and I actually shrunk it down a little bit. I made those corners nice and square though, or pretty square, a whole lot better than they were, let's be honest. So now that all 4 corners are square,
I guess let me put this on pause because I want to run a bunch of these through with it sitting like this. Big bag is set.
all right, now that I've turned my garage into a absolute disaster and a full-on wood shop, the next step is going to be to get this set to 1.5 inches, so that way I can send all of these through and make them all the exact same length. So just
Go ahead and
bingo. All right, so now that that's set to 1.5 inches, all I have to do is feed them all through. I don't know. You can do it one of two ways. You can cut them down to 3 inches first, or you can send them through the table saw first. Either way, I don't know. It'd be easier just to send down, well, I don't know. I'm going to send them through the table saw first, and then I can just on the table saw, or on the chop saw. So now the next thing we have to do is take all of these. They are, let's see if I can get a short one. They are all 1.5 by 1.5 now. Nice and square, ready to do their thing. And got a stop block set up here. All we got to do now is set it in and chop away. Let's get to it. I guess, let me explain that a little better. So the pieces are 3 inches long, and 1.5 inches of that is going to be 45. So I'm going to take all of these sticks, and I'm going to cut them all to 3 inches. And that's what we're doing right now. So I've got this stop box set to exactly 3 inches off of the saw, and all you got to do is stick them in there and zip them down. So this is a nice easy step here. So now that we've got them all cut down to size, we need to come back over to the miter station, pick up these blocks, and cut a 45 into all of them. So I've got the stop block set. It's just going to be a lot more time just chopping away at it. So I guess without further ado, here we go.
So it was at this point that I had essentially given up on trying to explain what I was doing, because I was having such a rough time milling all of these down. It was a very tedious process. But With that being said, the next step was to arrange all of these blocks. And I didn't know if I should do some sort of pattern here or if I should just do absolute chaos. And I liked the option of turning them 90 one time each time you place them so that the faces were never the exact same and there was a chaotic pattern. Not something you could see visually, but the option of seeing all of the faces different from each other. None of them were the same, none of them were back to back. I thought that looked way better. So that was the result we finally went with on that. So that's how you lay the blocks out to get the orientation that I got. Just turn the block 90 degrees, whether it's left or right, it doesn't matter. As long as it's only 90 degrees from the last block that you just laid, you should be good to go. After we've got the pattern set out and it looks good and it looks how we want it to look, the next step is to glue up. Now, this is my first glue up, and I'd highly advise not doing something this technical on your first glue up if this is your first glue up. The first step is to break the project down into manageable sections so that you can glue up each section individually and then come back later and glue it up as a whole. So I did this in about 12 different glue ups and then the final glue up itself. So take the panels and then apply glue to each side. I found that gluing along the entire length of the boards instead of each individual square worked a lot faster. So apply it along the length, set it back down, and then go the other way and apply all the glue along the width. And you'll see that in this clip as well. This made for the fastest glue up I could think possible. Then it was just a matter of letting all that dry and getting this glued up for the final time with the big project. Now make sure you have cauls and clamp this much better than I did. I've got major warping in this now that the glue is drying. So learn from what I did and make sure you clamp this from the bottom. Make sure you take the time to plan this out. Make sure you have the correct clamps to do this if this is something you're going to try and do. This is not a small project. I cannot believe how insanely difficult this was. I did not think it was going to be this hard, but in the end, I'm mostly satisfied. And if I were to do it again, I would definitely get a jointer and run boards through the jointer and make sure everything was perfectly square before I started this. And that would make the glue up 100 times easier. And also making sure I just have enough clamps so I can clamp the back as well as the front. I did not have enough clamps. So as far as mounting goes, I decided to go with a French cleat. And aside from the boards being warped, it seems to be holding up really well. Now, what you need to do is cut down a board at a 45-degree angle, and that'll allow you to give you the French cleat if you're unfamiliar. What this does is allows the board on top to grab the board on bottom because you cut the 45-degree angle in it so that it cannot pull away from the wall. I figured this is a pretty good option. It's actually the way that the mirror inside the artwork is also being held is a metal French cleat that came with it. But we are making the French cleat on the back of the art piece so that it can hang on the wall. The cleat on the back of the art piece is 4 feet wide, the exact width of the art piece itself. This allows us to center the art piece where we want it on the wall once we get the other one hung. Now, walls are typically 16 on center, so we can cut the piece that goes on the wall just a little over 32 inches, so we can hit 3 different studs, this allowing for the most stable operation of hanging this on the wall. Once we have the cleat mounted on the back and the cleat mounted on the wall, the next step is going to be to hang the lighting around the inside of the mirror. So I went about 1.5 to 2 inches inside of the mirror face, and I just nailed down the scraps that I had because the light has a sticky back and it just needs something to adhere to. So I've got 1x2s that I've got laying around that I used. So I just nailed those to the plywood on the back of the project. And then I was able to nail them in from the back and then run the lighting all around them, and that kept the lighting pretty evenly spaced all the way around, so that way you could see equal light coming throughout the entire mirror. Once that's all done and run, you got to drill a hole so you got access to it so you can get it plugged in as well. Then it's time to hang the mirror. Just a couple screws that come with the mirror, get the French cleat up on the project, and then you can just slide the mirror down in place, and then the mirror is sitting there nice and tidy, and then we've got a finished product ready to go on the wall. Now, with this being as big as it is, it's an absolute behemoth to lift up. I could not believe how heavy this ended up being, and so getting it on the wall was quite the challenge. But if you've made it this far, you know quite well how heavy this is going to be. With all that being said, if you've made it this far, please be sure to click the like button, drop a comment below if you got something for me, something I missed, and as always, if you enjoyed this content, please click that subscribe button. It really does help the channel out, and I'll see you in the next one.
Trade crowns for a six-figure deal, I don't blame them, I just pray for them. We all one mistake from the cage out the graveyard. Living like a movie, but the credits never roll. They gon' crop you out the frame if you ever lose control. Talk truth, they call it hate, but the fake love louder than an ache. Every scar got a sermon in it, every L got a learning in it. I ain't perfect, I just pin it how I lived it. If the game rigged, then I still pivot. Mirror, mirror on the wall, tell me who gon' rise and fall. I've been running.